In the early 1960s, Honda was known for motorcycles, not cars. The company had just come out of the post-war recovery and was already making a name for itself with bikes that were fast and reliable. But in 1963, something unexpected happened. Honda entered the car business not with a flashy sports car or a big sedan, but with a tiny pickup truck called the Honda T360. This was not the kind of debut most people expected, but it was the kind that made people pay attention. The Honda T360 was introduced in June 1963 and became the company's first ever production automobile. It was a K-truck, which meant it followed Japan's strict rules for small vehicles. These trucks had to be short, narrow, and use small engines. The T360 ticked every box. It was only 117.7 inches long, 51 inches wide, and stood 60 inches tall. The wheelbase measured exactly 78.7 inches. Even its color followed a rule. All units were painted in a shade Honda called May Blue. At 1,345 pounds, the truck was light, but it could still carry about 772 pounds in the back. What made the T360 truly strange was what sat under its seat. Honda did not just slap any small engine in there. They used a 356 cubic centimeter, inline-4, water-cooled, dual overhead camshaft engine. It was called the AK250E. It made 30 horsepower at 8,500 revolutions per minute, and yes, that red line is not a typo. This thing revved like a race bike, which made sense, because Honda had pulled directly from its motorcycle technology. The engine was mounted in the middle of the truck, underneath the cabin. To get to it, you had to lift the bench seat. That was not normal, even in Japan. There were different versions of the T360 to meet different jobs. The base model was a small pickup. The T360F had a flatbed. The T360H came with folding side panels for easier loading. The T360V was a van with a boxy rear. And then there was the T360 Snowcrawler, a wild version made for snowy areas. It had rear-mounted tracks like a snowmobile and was built for rural places in northern Japan. Production of the T360 lasted from June 1963 to August 1967. It started at the Saitama factory, which later became the Waco plant. In April 1965, Honda moved production to its new Sayama factory, the company's first dedicated automobile plant. In total, Honda built 108,920 T360 units. The T360 was not a bestseller around the world, but that was never the point. Honda used this truck to prove it could build a car, not just a motorcycle. It showed the Japanese Ministry of International Trade and Industry that Honda deserved a spot in the crowded car industry. After this came the Honda S500 sports car, and later the TN360, which replaced the T360 in 1967. So yes, Honda's first car was a tiny truck with a race bike engine that revved to the moon and carried cabbages. Strange choice? Maybe. Smart move? Definitely. Most people know the big names in Japanese trucks: Toyota, Nissan, Isuzu, but there was another name that once stood tall: Prince. Before it became part of Nissan, the Prince Motor Company made cars and trucks that helped build Japan's post-war economy. One of their most important machines was a tough and useful truck called the Prince Miler. It came in many forms, changed its name a few times, and even got a super version. But behind the funny names and badge changes was a truck that tells the story of Japan's fast-moving car industry in the 1950s and 1960s. The Prince Miler started life in September 1957. Its first versions were called AOTH-1 and AQTH-1. These trucks were meant to replace the older Prince truck from 1952, known as the AFTF. The early Miler used a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine called the FG4. It made 45 horsepower. That might not sound like much today, but back then it could carry a 1.25-ton load, which was enough to haul small goods across narrow Japanese roads. The company kept upgrading the Miler quickly. A version called the GA30 came with a more powerful 60 horsepower engine. The load limit also increased to 1,750 kilograms. In 1958, Prince launched a new version called the New Miler, with the model code ARDOTH-1. It still had the same GA30 engine, but now had a longer wheelbase and a larger bed. By 1959, they had rolled out the ARTH2, which made 70 horsepower and had a light miler version for 1.25-ton use. Then, in April 1961, the company introduced something a little bigger, the Prince Supermiler. This one used a 1.9-liter GB engine. At first, it made 80 horsepower, but engineers later boosted it to 91 horsepower. That gave the Supermiler the strength to carry up to 2 tons, or about 4,400 pounds. It got a new model code to BRTH2. In 1962, the whole lineup got a bit of a makeover. The Miler now had twin headlights and a new front grille. The light miler became the T430 and the Supermiler became the T431. The interiors also got a few small improvements. By 1965, Prince launched the T440 series. These trucks were more advanced. They had a new front suspension using a double wishbone setup and came with a 5-speed manual transmission. The light miler had a 1.5-liter G1 engine. The Supermiler used a 1.9-liter G2 engine. Both were overhead valve inline 4s. In 1966, the Prince Motor Company merged with Nissan. After that, the miler trucks got Nissan badges. The T446 became the Nissan Prince Light Miler with a 1.6-liter R engine. The T447 became the Nissan Prince Miler using a 2.0-liter H20 engine borrowed from the Nissan Junior truck. Both came with 4-speed manual gearboxes. By 1970, the Miler name was gone. It had been absorbed fully into Nissan's larger truck line, but from 1957 to 1970, the Prince Miler played an important part in Japan's road and factory life. It may not have been flashy, but it worked hard, and sometimes that is all a truck needs to do. In the early 1960s, most people outside Japan had never heard of Hino Motors. At the time, the company was mostly known for building buses and large trucks, but behind the scenes, Hino was trying something different. They were working on a small pickup truck that would eventually help shape the future of Japanese utility vehicles. That truck was the Hino Briska. It had a funny name, a strange origin, and a short but important life that led directly to the creation of the Toyota Hilux. The Briska may not be well known today, but without it, one of the world's most famous pickups might not exist. The Hino Briska was first introduced in 1961. It was based on the Hino Contessa sedan, which itself was developed with help from Renault. In fact, the earliest Briska models borrowed their engine from the Renault 4CV. That engine was a small 893 cubic centimeter inline 4, which made about 35 horsepower. By 1963, that number went up to 40 horsepower. It was not fast, but it got the job done. Hino called this first series the FG series. These trucks used a 4-speed manual transmission and had rear-wheel drive. There were multiple versions, including the FG20P crew cab, which could carry 400 kilograms, and the long wheelbase FG30, which could handle 850 kilograms. The Briska was also the first Japanese truck with a bench seat for 3 people, which was a big deal at the time. Its dimensions were compact by today's standards. The truck was about 151 to 163 inches long and 63 inches wide. Height and wheelbase also varied depending on the version. In 1965, Hino upgraded the truck and released the FH series, also known as the Briska 1300. This version had a larger 1,251 cubic centimeter inline 4 engine called the GR100. It produced 55 horsepower. A version of this truck was later sold as the Toyota Briska, with the engine tuned up to 63 horsepower. The payload capacity was raised to 2,200 pounds. The newer trucks were a little longer too, about 168 inches. Curb weight was just under 2,400 pounds. But things changed in 1966 when Hino was bought by Toyota. That led to the short-lived Toyota Briska, which was produced from 1967 to 1968. After that, the Hilux replaced it. In total, about 33,916 Briska 900S and 15,036 Briska 1300s were made. Around 10,000 Toyota Briskas were built before the line ended. Today, the Briska is nearly forgotten, but it played an important part in Japanese automotive history. Without it, The Toyota Hilux might have had a very different beginning, or none at all. In the late 1950s, Japan's streets were filled with bicycles, carts, and a few small cars. Most people could not afford a full-sized vehicle. The country was rebuilding, and businesses needed cheap ways to move goods. Out of this need came one of the smallest pickups ever built, a strange little truck with a funny name. But behind that odd shape was a company with a surprising past and a story that helped shape Japan's auto industry. The vehicle was called the Kurogane Baby. It was built by a company named Tokyu Kogyo Kurogane, which had a long history. Back in 1926, this company started making small vehicles and motorcycles. During World War II, Kurogane became famous for building the Type 95 Kurogane, the world's first mass-produced four-wheel drive passenger car. It was used by the Japanese military and looked more like a tiny Jeep than a family car. After the war, Kurogane shifted to building small commercial vehicles. In 1957, it absorbed another Japanese car company named Ota Jidosha Seisosho, also called Ota Motors. Ota was known for making passenger cars, but they had experience in building engines and had a skilled team of engineers. With the two companies combined, Kurogane started working on a new type of vehicle, one that would fit the new Japanese laws for K-class vehicles. K-cars were small, low-powered vehicles designed to help people own cars even in tight urban areas. In April 1959, Kurogane launched the Baby, a forward-control pickup and microvan that looked like a small box on wheels. The driver sat directly above the front axle, with the engine tucked underneath. This design made the most out of its short length. It was about 117 inches long and just over 51 inches wide. The Baby came in several forms: a flatbed pickup, a small van, and even a version with canvas sides. Under the floor sat a 356 cubic centimeter air-cooled two-stroke, two-cylinder engine made by Ota. It produced 12 horsepower, which was just enough to haul light loads through the city. The vehicle weighed about 880 pounds, which made it easy to maneuver in Japan's narrow streets. The top speed was somewhere around 40 miles per hour. Not fast, but it got the job done. It had a 3-speed manual transmission, and power went to the rear wheels. What made the Kurogane Baby stand out was that it was the first forward-control K-truck ever made in Japan. That meant it had the driver at the very front, like a mini bus. This layout gave it more space in back without needing a longer body. It helped set the style for future Japanese micro-trucks like the Honda T360 and the Subaru Sambar. The Baby was not built for long. Production ended in January 1961, just under 2 years later. In that time, only a few thousand were made, but it was a step in the journey that helped shape Japan's light commercial vehicle market. After that, Kurogane itself did not last much longer. In 1962, it merged into Nissan, ending its run as an independent maker. The Kurogane Baby may have had a cute name, but it played a serious role in Japan's auto history. It showed how smart design and teamwork between two companies, Kurogane and Ota, could create something simple, useful, and ahead of its time, even if it looked like a bread box on wheels.